Starting out in photography can seem like a pricey venture with lots of gear to buy. However, once you've got your equipment sorted, surprisingly it becomes one of the most cost-effective hobbies around. This makes a camera not just a great tool, but a smart investment as well. So in today's video, I'll be delving into various strategies to safeguard your valuable gear, because it's quite possible your camera is being damaged while you sleep. So welcome back, and what a beautiful morning it's been so far, and I've bagged a few photographs already which I'll share through the video, but I want to talk about a few mistakes I've made in the past that have damaged my camera equipment, with the hope that you can avoid making similar mistakes to me. So I recently decided to trade in one of my expensive f2.8 lenses, hoping to recoup a decent amount of money. However, after sending it into a company for inspection, I discovered that that lens was actually damaged. Now the strange part was I hadn't used it for absolutely ages and it had just been stored in my office. Nevertheless, I had to pay for the repairs to be done before I could proceed with the trade-in, which ended up costing me about £300. Now, I did manage to uncover why that lens was damaged, and it could have been completely avoided, and it could be something that's happening to your gear right now. But I'm going to delve into that later on in the video. But first, I want to discuss several ways that we can care for our gear when we're out in the field to ensure that we don't have to shell out for any unnecessary repairs. So let's get into it. So the obvious place to start would be probably camera bags. Now I've got a few different camera bags like this one, and these are dedicated camera bags, and they've got camera cubes inside which protect all of the gear. And I think these are great, but they are very, very expensive. So if you don't have the budget for a dedicated camera bag, my recommendation would be to go with a hiking pack and then buy a separate camera cube. I did this for absolutely years, 5 or 6 years, and it worked really, really well. And yeah, they offer so much more flexibility as well. So that's a great idea. But what you just need to make sure you do when you stack your camera gear in your bag is make sure that they can't rub against each other, because quite often when you look inside your camera bag, everything looks nicely separated, but when you put it on, it all scrunches up and wiggles about as you're moving. So you really need to make sure things are not scratching or chafing against each other as you hike about. So that would be my recommendation. Just make sure everything is nicely separated with good dividers, and yeah, make sure nothing's rubbing on zips and stuff like that, because wear and tear will reduce the price of your gear long term, especially when you come to trade it in. So yeah, something to consider. So camera straps are obviously another thing that could save you from dropping your camera. However, for me personally, I've had a bad experience with camera straps in the past. I went to put my camera away, so I took the strap off. The strap got caught on something, snagged the camera out of my hand. I ended up dropping the camera on a hard floor, causing some damage. So that was a bit of an issue. So for me, I'm not a big fan of camera straps. However, I think the Peak Design ones are probably the best on the market in my opinion, because you can unclip the strap from the camera itself quite quickly and easily. Oh, by the way, this place looks absolutely stunning. Waterfalls flowing into the water, beautiful green foliage. Woohoo! Foggy, sunny conditions, absolutely amazing. Oh, let's have a seat. Right, it's super bright now. So changing lenses can always be a bit of a faff, can't it? And I think if you don't do it correctly, you can run the risk of damaging either the rear element or your sensor. So I quite often hear people saying, you should point your camera downwards when you're taking your lens off so nothing can get into the sensor. And I totally agree with that. But I think sometimes a lot of people forget to recommend that if you take the rear lens cap off your lens, you should probably hold that downwards as well. So if you hold that up and some crap gets in there, as soon as you screw it on the front of your camera body, potentially any of that dust, grit or grime could get into your sensor and obviously cause you problems down the line. So yeah, if you can keep both pointing down as long as possible. That really does help to make sure nothing can get into your sensor and potentially cause you some problems. Whew, a little bit out of breath. Anyway, I want to talk about, being out in the elements, because obviously with landscape photography in particular, we're exposed to the elements quite a lot. Quite often we're out in the rain and the wind. So yeah, we need to protect our gear. Now, I tend to only really get my camera out of the bag when I think there's a shot that's worth taking. I've got a few things that kind of help, which obviously I'm holding here. One is this big microfiber cloth, which is almost like a lens cloth, which I can either drape over my camera, which helps to protect it, or if I get water on my camera, I can use this and it will soak it all up. And because it's that kind of very fine cloth, I don't even mind wiping the front of the lens element with it as well. I have actually got some, you can see there, some microfiber cloths. I've got a whole bunch of those in the bag as well. And in my pocket here, if I can get it out, I've got this, which is a rocket blower. And these are really good for blowing water droplets off the front of your lens element. And what that does, it saves you having to wipe it all the time. And obviously wiping for prolonged periods, I guess, could cause maybe scratching long term, especially if you've got some grit on the front of your lens. So if you can blow it off, that really helps. And it also stops smearing as well. So I highly recommend a rocket blower. It is always in my bag. So another thing that is pretty tough on camera gear, and that is dust. So if you're out in a dusty environment, it's well worth keeping your camera in the bag for as long as possible until you need to take the shot, and then get it out, take your shot, get the job done, and then move on, get it protected again, because dust just gets everywhere. It gets into the dials, the buttons, the sensor, the lenses, absolutely everything, and it is a nightmare. So if you're out in a dusty environment, yeah, just take as many precautions as possible. Whew, this is a steep old hill. If you shoot a lot of seascapes like I do, salt water can be a massive problem for your camera gear. Now, I've got a bit of a meticulous regime, if you like, when I get back home after a seascape shoot, and that is I just get a semi-damp cloth and wipe everything down and then dry it off with a dry towel and just leave it on the side to dry. I do that every single time I go and shoot at the coast, because even if your camera doesn't get wet, there's still a lot of salt in the air, especially if the wind's coming from onshore, if it's coming straight off the sea towards you, and it can get in all of the dials and buttons. So yeah, just giving it a good wipe over, I think that will improve the lifespan of your gear, because over time, the dials and the buttons in particular can get very sticky to the point where they even stop working. I know that from experience. So yeah, highly recommend getting a bit of a procedure together when you get back from a seascape shoot. I guess the other issue is as well, if you get an actual wave or some spray coming over onto the top of your camera, and I think you really need to dry that off as quickly as possible, as obvious as it sounds. But yeah, again, grab that e-cloth, get it on there, get it clean and dry. And I use these are lens wipes, and just give it a wipe over that and then another dry with a drier towel. And I think that will help. I would actually avoid using a rocket blower or pressurized air to blow water off the camera body itself, because what can happen, especially if you've not got a weather sealed body, you can drive that rain, salt water, dust into the nooks and crannies of the body, and potentially just pushing them deeper into the camera, which would probably do more harm than good. So yeah, I would always go down the wiping method myself. Oh, this is one heck of a steep coastal path. It's beautiful though. Bluebells, sea campion, flowers, just amazing. So the next thing I want to talk about is tripods, because as handy as they are, they can be a right pain as well. Now, fortunately, I've not had any issues with my camera falling off a tripod yet, touch wood, but I've seen it firsthand, and it is an absolutely awful thing to see. So there's a few reasons this could happen. The first one is when the camera is placed on the tripod, the quick release is not clicked in properly, or if you use the screw-in type like I do, sometimes they can work loose. Now, I'm going to tell you something that I don't do myself. Now, I keep telling myself, come on, Worth, sort it out. You've got to do this. And that is stop walking around with the camera on the tripod, because I've seen somebody slip over on wet, slippery rocks, and it's always the camera that hits the ground first. And if you're on rocks, it's going to smash. So yeah, they say practice what practice what you preach, don't they? And I've got to sort myself out with this, because I'm always doing it. I'm always moving from one location to the next with the camera thrown over my shoulder on the tripod. Yeah, I'm asking for trouble, aren't I, really? So I need to have a word with myself, I think, about that one. So another thing that could potentially damage your camera is cleaning the sensor. Now, I highly recommend cleaning the sensor yourself, and if you haven't done it before, it's super easy to do. There's a ton of YouTube tutorials out there that you can follow, but what I would say is get the correct equipment to do it. So buy the correct swabs, the correct size, they come in different sizes for your sensor, and get the correct cleaning fluid as well. I use, I think it's a K&F Concept cleaning swabs, and they're absolutely fine. They do the job just perfectly. One thing I would say though is it's always worth blowing out your sensor before you start swabbing. So hold the camera upside down, give it a good blowout with a rocket blower to make sure there's no dust or grit in there, because if you're swabbing dust or grit, potentially you could scratch your sensor, and that is something you really don't want to do. Like I said, if you haven't done it before, it's super easy, but if you are a little bit concerned, it's probably worth paying to have it done professionally. That way you've got a little bit of peace of mind. But yeah, once you've done it once, it really is easy as pie. Whew, it's getting hot now. I'm gonna have to take the hat off in a minute. So just before I get on to why my lens got damaged, if you guys can think of any other reasons why camera gear might get damaged when you're out in the field, please do drop a comment down in the comment section below, because it's always good to help out fellow photographers. And also, because there are lots of photos from today's shoot, I've put together a blog post where you can take a look in more detail and check out the camera settings as well. The link for that is in the video description. Anyway, let's get on to the reason why my lens got damaged while I was sleeping. The lens I'm talking about was my 50-140 f2.8. Like I mentioned at the beginning of the video, I'd sent it off for a trade-in. Now it came back and it got damaged, and it got moisture inside the lens, and this really did puzzle me because I hadn't taken it out for so long. But what happened was my house, it's an old Welsh stone cottage. It's got thick walls, but there's no cavity there. And I think through the winter, you know, those external walls, they get quite damp. My camera bag was positioned quite closely to one of the external walls in my office. And I think that wall had got a high moisture content, so the moisture had come through into my camera bag. And because the lens was in the camera bag, I wasn't getting any air circulation around it, the moisture got inside the lens, even though it was a weather sealed lens. So yeah, something I never considered, but yeah, cost me £300, just something silly like that. So I highly recommend not leaving your gear, you know, for prolonged periods inside camera bags, especially against external walls if you live in a damp environment. You know, we live in Wales. During the winter we get rain every single day, so yeah, it's something to bear in mind. Now I've got a dehumidifier which I put in my office, and every couple of days I turn the dehumidifier on, and that just dries the environment out and reduces that humidity, which is going to protect my camera gear. So spending a little bit of money on that, I think, will save money long term. So it's something I highly recommend considering. I think for storing camera gear now, I would actually put my camera gear on a shelf as opposed to putting it in a bag for long periods. I think if it's on a shelf, at least the air can circulate around it. Yes, it may get a bit of dust on it, but that can be easily cleaned off. Whereas moisture, you've got to get that cleaned professionally, and that is a real problem. So yeah, don't make the same mistake as me. Make sure your office is nice and dry, or get a dehumidifier. So it's been an absolutely amazing day today. Thoroughly enjoyed it. We got some amazing conditions first off, didn't we? Woo-hoo. Really good. We don't get days like that here very often, so yeah, I've got to make the most of that. But I'm heading back now because the light is too harsh, and I do hope you enjoyed this week's video, and a massive thanks for watching as always. And please do comment below any tips that might help anybody else out as well, because that would be much appreciated by everybody, I'm absolutely sure. If you enjoyed this video, please be sure to check out the one that's up here. And if you fancy checking out my ebook, which helps to support what I do, the link for that is up there and also down in the video description. Anyway guys, take care and I'll see you all again next week.